563 BCE, on the day of Vaishakha Purnima at Lumbini, Nepal, a prince was born. Son of king of the Shakya clan who ruled the Kosala kingdom, centered around their capital Kapilavastu. The prince came to be known as Siddhartha Gautama or Prince of Shakya as Shakya Muni. It was believed that soon after he was born, prophecy was made that he will either be a great conqueror king or a great renouncer. Renunciation at that time meant he will give up his materialistic life that he was born in and become an ascetic. Siddharth's father wanted him to live life as a king, in all his luxury. He then started shielding him from sorrows and brought him up in utmost comforts. At the age of 12, he was sent away for schooling in Hindu sacred scriptures, and at an early age of 16, he was married to Yashodhara and had a son named Rahul. But at the age of 29, chanced upon an aged man, a sick man, a funeral procession, and a monk begging for alms. These sights altogether moved him from within, so much that he decided to wander in search of truth of life and leaves his palace with his charioteer named Chanana on his favorite horse named Kantaka. After traveling along them, he then decides to leave the charioteer and horse behind and wanders alone for 6 years. He then gains knowledge from various ascetics and practices extreme austerities until his body almost gives up. But he seems to fail at his attempt to seek truth. He then moves towards a village at Sanani, which is the present day Bihar, located across the Falgu River from Bodh Gaya. In this village, he was offered a bowl of rice by a village girl Sujata. This ended his 6 years of severe asceticism. He also accepted a grass mat from grass cutter. He then took a seat under a peepal tree facing east. Here he resolved not to rise again until enlightenment was attained. Enlightenment is a state of high spiritual knowledge. Being enlightened after 7 days, he renamed the tree the Bodhi Tree or the Tree of Wisdom. He then began to teach and share his understandings. At this point, he came to be known as Buddha, the awakened or the enlightened one. In Deer Park at Sarnath, Buddha delivered his first sermon. A sermon is a religious or moral talk. This event came to be known as the Dharm Chakra Pavartana. We will understand this why this is called so ahead. He then established Buddhist monastics community or the Sangh of monks and nuns. He traveled through present-day Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and taught compassion and liberation from suffering. At the age of 80, he then passed away and entered Mahaparinivarana, which is final liberation from the cycle of rebirths. Some questions lingers in our minds. Observing his life and philosophy, was Buddha an isolated genius? Why such deep philosophy? What is the purpose of life? What is the truth of life? The answer lies in the 6th century BCE, which propagated religions, ideologies around the world, a period that historians called as the Axle Age of the human philosophy. It was a transformative period in the world history when new beliefs were established in the society that began after seeking answers about deeper meaning of life and human existence beyond death. India was no such exception. Debates took place in the Kut Gharshala, a hut with pointed roof or in grooves, where the mendicants, while travelling, halted. If a philosopher succeeded in convincing a group, the group would become his disciples. In India, the hierarchy of status by birth was frowned upon. The Kshatriyas started questioning the superiority and dominance of the Brahmins in the Vedic society. Vaishyas, who are the traders and the merchants, saw an economic upliftment in trade and crafts, but they were still looking for better societal positions. With the rise in dairy and agriculture industry, the demand for animals and their abuse increased. Buddha's philosophy questioned the authority of this society. He appeared like the answers the society was looking for. Buddha's first sermon in Deer Park forms the basis for Buddhism. He spoke to his disciples orally and transmitted his teachings orally. Buddha's death was in Kushinagar in Malaz territory, which is the present-day Uttar Pradesh, but his teachings were spread across Magad's empire. It was after his death his disciples decided to recite them, categorize them, and finally write them. They feared his teachings with his death might be forgotten or altered. At the time of Buddha's death, Magad was ruled by a powerful and an aggressive ruler, Ajatasattu. In order to preserve the social and religious stability as a king's interest, he sponsored First Buddhist Council at his capital, Rajgriha, a fortified city surrounded by 5 hills. Mahakashyapa was made the president of this council, as he was Buddha's most revered disciple. The council was held at the Satapani caves in Rajgriha. In the first council, two of his disciples recited his teachings in two categories. First, the Sut. The first recitation contained all the teachings and dialogues by Buddha specifically that he said during the first sermon at Deer Park. We will learn about this in detail ahead. This category was recited by his disciple Ananda. Second was Vinaya. This category was recited and focused on the rules and regulations for the monks and nuns, also the foundation of the monastic community and life at monastery. This recitation was done by a barber who was a disciple named Upali. Later, scholars, through thinking and analysis of his teachings, summaries, questions and answers, made another so-called category Abhidhamma, or the higher teachings. Together, these three categories was called as the three baskets or Tripitikas. Sut was the basket of discourses, Vinay was the basket of discipline, and Abhidhamma was the basket of higher teachings. As the central theme of Buddha's teachings is inherited in Sutta Pitika, we will understand this in depth. But before we start it, please take a note. The recitation was done in Pali language by Buddha and also by his disciples in the first council. But Sanskrit language was later considered by another group evolved of Buddhist ideology. Buddha wanted to lead humanity to emancipation, that is, gain freedom from central resistance or power. He used Pali language to propagate his ideas. Remember, when preparing for Buddhism, you will always come across two words with similar sound and meanings, like Dhamma or Dharma. One is in Pali language and other is in Sanskrit. A fact. Pali language was granted classical language status in 2024, joining the list of 11 classical languages of India. Let us now begin to understand Sutta Pitika. Sutta Pitika contains the sermon, dialogues, and teachings attributed primarily to Gautam Buddha. Sutta Pitika preserves the Buddha's teachings of four noble truths. The first truth is the truth of suffering. Buddha called this as Dukh. He said, Dukh, or suffering is experienced by every individual in the world. Second truth is samudaya, which is the truth of the cause of suffering. As per him, this cause of suffering is not because of one entity, but 12 entities that are interlinked, that is, one leads to another. These are as follows: Jati, that starts by birth; Vijna, which is the initial consciousness of the fetus; Sadayatna, which is the sixth sense development; Sparsh, that is the sensing of object contact; Vedana, which is the feeling or experience of the sense; Samskara, that is the mental formation of the impressions of experiences; Nam Roop, which is giving name and form to this samskara; Upadana, which is the attachment that follows; Trishna, which is the cravings to this Upadana; Bhav, that is the desire to experience again; Avidya, which is ignorance to this Upadana Bhav Dukh that follows it; Jara Marna, which is the old age and death. These 12 entities are linked and follows cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Out of these 12 entities, avidya, which is human's ignorance, is the root cause of suffering as per Buddha. The third truth is nirodh. It means truth of the end of suffering. If the root cause of suffering, which is avidya, is dispelled, the links are broken that leads to suffering. The person then attains nirvana. Nir means no and vana means suffering. The fourth truth is Ashtangika Marg, which means Ashtang or the eightfold path is the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. What is this eightfold path? This Ashtangika Marg is thought to be like a wheel, as wheel cannot roll if all its parts don't work together. Similarly, this eightfold path is integrated to support one another. The eight spokes of the wheel are the eight parts of the path: right mindfulness, right view, right livelihood, right speech, right concentration, right action, right aspiration, and right effort. Turning of this wheel, Dharm Chakra Pavartana, as rightly entitled his first sermon at Deer Park Sarnath. The motion of the wheel is said to be the spreading of the practices and teachings of Buddha, spread of the Dharma. Buddha lived on two extreme ends. As a prince, a life full of luxury and comfort, and as an ascetic, a life full of severe mortification by years of extreme fasting. But after achieving enlightenment, the experiences convinced him that a healthy body and a balanced mind are essential for spiritual progress. He concluded that neither indulgence nor self torture leads to wisdom. Instead, he believed in the middle path. This middle path is attained by practicing the Four Noble Truths explained by him. He believed that these practices will guide a person towards the end of suffering without falling into either extremes. As he believed in anicca, which means everything in this universe is subject to change, our body, emotions, relationships, health, wealth, everything. He also rejects the Vedic ideology of Atma or soul, which is the basis of Upanishads. He rather believed in anatta, which is soulless. He also transformed the very meaning of karma that prevailed in the Vedic society. Karma was defined on the lines of your fate or as divine punishments. Buddha believed karma to be the intentional actions that leads you to suffering in this very present life and not in rebirths or next life. After the first Buddhist council in 483 BCE at Rajgriha under the ruler Ajatashatru, where the Tripitikas were recited by Ananda and Upali. For several years, there were unsettling debates around the second basket, Vinaya, the basket that laid the rules and practices for the monks and nuns were largely debated. The disagreements were around how strictly the rules should be practiced. After 100 years of First Buddhist Council, that is, in 383 BCE, the Second Buddhist Council took place in Vaishali, Bihar. This was conducted under the ruler Kalasoka and presided by Sabakami. The objective was to resolve the dispute relating to money, food, and monastery rules. These differences created two groups: Thaviravartas, or the elders, who wanted to strictly preserve the original rules. This group was smaller in number and much more disciplined. Second group was Mahasambhikas, the larger body of monks that favored a much more flexible community with flexible rules. They believed that second basket can be flexible, but the first basket, which is the Sut or the doctrine of discourses, should remain same and holds much more importance in Buddhism. More years passed. In 2050 BCE, Ashoka organized the Third Buddhist Council under the presidency of Mogliputra at Patliputra. Two major highlights of this council was, first, the addition of new compilation Kathavattu in third basket Abhidhamma. The second highlight was Ashok sent Buddhist missionaries across Asia. He organized this council after he sent his children Mahendra and Sangmitra to Ceylon, Sri Lanka to propagate Buddhism. After the Fourth Buddhist Council in Kashmir under the ruler Kanishk, the Buddhism was divided into two sects. The Sthaviravadas, or the elders, grouped together as a sect called Theravada. Thera means elders in Pali. It also marked as the first time the Tripitikas were written on palm leaves by the Theravadas in Pali language. The greater community, or the Mahasambhikas, gradually emerged as a sect called as the Mahayana sect. Maha means great and Yana means path. Since this sect recognized themselves as the Mahayana sect, they refer to the Theravadas as the Hinayana sect. Hina means lesser. Let us now understand the differences in these two sects in depth. Theravadas adopted Buddhism as the main aim to achieve nirvana. They believed in attaining individual salvation like Buddha through the path lighted by him. They treated Buddha as a human being and didn't believe in ideal worship. The disciples that reached enlightenment called themselves as arhats. Mahayana sect treated Buddha as God and worshipped his idol. And the disciples that reached the enlightenment, they called themselves as the Bodhisattva. Unlike the arhats in Theravadas that believed in personal enlightenment, Bodhisattva were the ones that attained nirvana but chose to continue helping others reach enlightenment. Second, the Theravada taught in Pali language and Mahayana sect chose Sanskrit as their language. This is why we see words like Dhamma, Dharma, Nirvana, Nibbana, etc. Currently, Theravada Buddhism centers in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, whereas the Mahayana sect in Japan, China, Korea, Vietnam. You will find there two main schools of teaching in each sect. Since Mahayana sect believed in ideal worship of not only Buddha but also the Bodhisattva, here are the 8 Bodhisattvas that are great to Mahayana. First is the Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom carries sword in his right hand that symbolizes the wisdom that cuts through the ignorance. Avalokiteshvara represents compassion depicted in white and holding lotus. Vajrapani representing power and energy depicted as blue in color standing in warrior pose surrounded by fire. Maitreya, also known as the future Buddha, predicted to arrive in future. Kshitigarbha, saving beings from suffering, wears luxurious robes and holds a jewel in hand called Sintamani. Akashgarbha, twin brother of Kshitigarbha, predicted in blue-green skin, with halo around, standing calmly on the fish in the middle of the ocean, represents boundless memory and purifies emotions. Samantabhadra, always riding an elephant with six tusks, representing six perfections: charity, morality, patience, diligence, contemplation, and wisdom. Sarva Nivarna Vishkambhil represents the removal of obstacles on the path to enlightenment. Another sect that emerged out of Mahayana is the Vajrayana sect, which means vehicle of thunderbolt. It is also referred to as the Tantric Buddhism that was established in Tibet in the 11th century. It is an extension of Buddhist thoughts and practice which is quicker and more effective path to enlightenment like a thunderbolt. It consists of array of rituals, mantras that also emphasizes on the role of guru, also called as the lama in Tibet. Some important Buddhist writers. These texts or literature is not directed by Buddha, but are impressions, perspectives, or observations of Buddhism. Subscribe to our channel for more such videos and learning. Follow our Instagram page for daily current affairs.